And so he begins this particular chapter by asking the question, why aren't there more nihilists, right? So he's going to tell us what nihilism is and then give some arguments for it. He believes that naturalism leads to nihilism, is what he's going to argue here. Actually, he's been arguing that
Right.
for the last couple chapters.
It logically follows that it should be the case.
Yeah, right. So he says here that he makes the statement here, without God, there are no universally binding moral rules. And he believes that he's shown that, right? Sure, there are all manner of moral rules that we impose on ourselves and others, he says. That is, we impose rules on somebody else or on ourselves, right? But none of these are actually binding in the way that we would imagine moral laws to be, right?
So it's like when we think of gold and gold having value. Gold is a rock in the ground,
right,
for the bird and for the limestone and for the bear, but we come along and we say, "Ooh, that's pretty, that's useful," and so we give it value. And so there's the independent or the dependent version of what humans value on or prefer on gold.
Right. So the idea here is morality is a matter of taste, right? What people find, that they like, basically. They prefer. Yeah, that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So naturalism, he says, implies moral nihilism. Moral nihilism is the view that there are no human independent moral rules, right? So without humans, without persons, nihilism says there are no moral rules. We kind of, make them up. It's our preferences and that kind of stuff. So he's given some arguments, as we have seen, arguments that run from naturalism to nihilism. Most of the folks who are atheists don't like them, and so they kind of reject nihilism, right? And so the other thing that Sam Harris, he mentions, also rejects nihilism, but not because of these bad arguments, but because he believes that it is incoherent, right? Moral nihilism is incoherent. So he gives us kind of Sam Harris's argument here. He tells us that Sam Harris calls moral nihilism moral relativism, right? And it kind of undermines itself. So this is what is usually called self-referentially incoherent. That's what that's usually called. So moral relativism, however, tends to be self-contradictory, right? This is Sam Harris's argument that he's given us. A relativist may say that moral truth exists only relative to a specific cultural frame. So right, only moral truth exists only relative to a specific cultural frame. So a particular culture or society has their own moral truth, right? And that's where it exists.
Yeah. Postmodernism is where we usually hear this from.
Right. Yeah. But Harris says, but this claim about the status of moral truth purports to be true across all possible frames. And so if you apply it to all possible frames, now you're making a universal truth, and you've already said that there is no universal truth. It's just relative to a particular cultural frame. Right. So according to Harris here, you have contradicted yourself.
Right. It's the quip. There are no absolutes. Are you absolutely sure? Yeah. It's pretty much the same thing. It's just an atheist is saying it instead of a Christian.
Right. So Harris believes that that's the problem with.
It's a big problem.
Moral relativism. Now, it's interesting that Mitch Stokes, doesn't think that Harris has it quite right here. He says that he believes this is a confusion on Harris's part. Now, he does say that some form of relativism are about truth and therefore can be self-defeating, right? So if you have relativism about what is true or truth, then you have a problem, right? That's what he's suggesting here. This view is going, but he says, for example, he gives us one example. All truth is relative, right? That is self-defeating, right? Because if it is, then this isn't true.
Yeah, that statement in and of itself is not true.
Right.